Welcome, Lennart Nordqvist. A round of applause, perhaps.
Thank you.
Lennart, I've learned that you have more than 18 years of experience from advising both public and private companies on sustainability and assurance in a wide range of industries. And you have served many of the largest companies in Sweden as well. And now you are a partner at Deloitte, heading its sustainability practice in Sweden. So, as you have been in the sustainability game for a long time, what differences do you see from when you started to where we are now?
I would say that there are quite huge differences. I think sustainability has become much more real, given what we see around us and all the focus it's been on sustainability topics. And that also goes within companies, that many companies have been working with this for a long time, but now the attention on the topics is much higher, and also on a higher level in the organization in general, I would say.
And why would you say that is? Is it a change in culture and how we value these?
I think the risks relating to sustainability, or the trends that we're seeing in the world in general, are getting more real. It's going to be tangible effects on companies over the longer term. And that is something that you need to manage today.
So we have to do something.
Yeah.
Otherwise we're screwed.
On a side note, I was warned about this higher step here, but I almost fell over when I got on the stage. So,
you see, risk assessment and risk management
exactly,
there.
Not optimal, I guess, but yeah.
Perfect.
I managed.
And also, on a more personal note, can you share a morning routine that you feel contributes to your well-being?
Number one, I'm not a morning person. I have 3 kids, so it's not in the mornings that I find my sort of, zen. But I guess one thing is that I eat oatmeal porridge each day, and I've been doing so for a very long time. That's good. That's about as good as it gets with me in the mornings, I guess.
Okay. So where do you find your zen then?
Probably later during the day or in the evening.
Yes.
Interacting with people, I would say.
Yeah, in that Monday meeting or so. Okay, I'm excited to hear your presentation. So go ahead.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So thank you all for having the opportunity to actually talk to you today. It seems like there's going to be a lot of interesting topics during the day, so I really look forward to engaging in discussions and hearing what you guys have to say as well. In this session, the intention is in this first session, to look a bit far and wide. At the moment, I think CSRD is taking up a lot of the oxygen when it comes to the discussion around sustainability. I assume many of you, like us, have been engaged in a lot of discussions around the new requirements, how to deal with them, how to move forward, etc. over the past year. And while this is highly relevant and very, very interesting, if you ask me, this is not what I'm going to focus on today. I will touch upon it, but we'll try to look beyond CSRD and see some of the pressures companies are facing in the slightly longer terms, and how to consider those today and as you move forward. I don't know how many of you joined this event in November, but back then I gave some highlights from the Deloitte 2023 CXO Sustainability Survey. Given that I know that repetition is the mother of wisdom, my intention is to start off with some key highlights from that presentation, so we can have that back in the back of our minds when going through the rest. But about the survey, so Deloitte CXO Sustainability Survey is a survey with, I think it's over 2,000 respondents in 24 different countries, but predominantly in Europe. So it's CXOs responding to this survey, and it provides some valuable insights into the perspectives of CXOs in different parts of the world. But some of the key takeaways that we saw in that survey is that climate is a top priority. A vast majority of CXOs are concerned about climate change, see that climate change will have a significant impact on the strategy and operations of their company over the coming 3 years. Slightly over 40% also rank climate change as one of the top 3 issues for their business, only surpassed by economic outlook, which was ranked slightly higher in this survey. The next item, acting but struggling. So what is evident is that companies are taking action, looking into sourcing more sustainable materials, working on energy efficiency, training employees, developing new, more sustainable products and services. But one of the top barriers for taking more actions is the difficulties in measuring sustainability impacts, and also high costs and a focus on near-term business issues rather than these more long-term perspectives. Most companies also struggle to see the actual financial benefits of the actions they take. So basically defining the business case. How will the actions we take actually drive increased shareholder value, new revenue streams, increased asset values, etc. Lastly, around 2/3 of the CXOs feel moderate to large pressure from a wide variety of stakeholders, predominantly from regulators, from customers and investors, but also from civil society, employees, and banks and lenders. Just reflecting on and also another important point there is that over the past year, regulatory initiatives have triggered more actions in the companies than should have not have been in place. But here I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg, just looking at how much effort companies have put in over these past years in taking on the EU taxonomy, the CSRD, etc. But against this backdrop, I think, or the intention is to dig a little bit deeper into what is companies actually facing over the longer term. So what's to come? So earlier this year, we helped a large financial institution look into how different sectors will be impacted. So the strategy and objectives of companies within different sectors will be impacted throughout the longer term. So about 25 years. So a very, very long-term perspective. The analysis was performed per corporate sector and covered a variety of aspects ranging from macroeconomic trends to socio-demographics to technology and to regulations to physical impacts of environment and climate over time. So this was a very interesting work, and on this page, I've tried to illustrate the outcome of the analysis and the key takeaways. In lack of a better name, I've called it the ease of life for companies. It's highly simplified and it's not to scale, but it's aimed at illustrating what we're going to face over this longer term period. And if we start with where we have come from a situation with an incredibly sort of stable and cheap environment where money has been basically free, and now we find ourselves in a situation with high interest rates, inflation, increased geopolitical tensions, which then sort of dampens the traction for companies. What we see if we look ahead, when things normally would have been picking up, now this is a bit negative, I guess, but when things normally would have been picking up, what we see is that within 5+ years, there will be a heavy increase on the regulatory burden on companies, which will also then be sort of a wet blanket on companies to a certain extent. Obviously, the impacts here will differ between sectors, where some sectors like real estate, agriculture, forestry may be hit slightly harder than other sectors, but most sectors will be impacted to an extent. This will obviously create new opportunities for many companies, but important to note that it will alter the cost of doing business over this period. Then over the longer term, then we will sort of get past this regulatory onslaught and we will get to a new business as usual. Somewhere down the line here, we will also likely see a shift in the discussion from regulations and hypotheticals to more on the actual physical impacts on climate and environment and how that impacts our companies. But how things will play out, that will obviously impact how capital is deployed in the end. There will come a point here somewhere down the line where the companies that have taken action, actually seize the moment, if you may, they will thrive. While companies that aren't really up to standard, they will find themselves in a tricky spot where they will have a much harder time attracting capital, staying competitive, and also risking more litigation than other companies. So that's just an indication of what we're up against. But to put some context into the regulatory burden here, my intention is to go through some of the key regulations coming along in the coming years, and also see how can we today actually start working with them, so we end up on the upwards trajectory rather than the downwards. As I said earlier, I won't delve into CSRD today, but I need to touch upon it. I would say that transparency and sustainability reporting is very much at the center of the regulatory efforts today. It's also a focal point for many of the discussions within companies, given the expectations now put on companies in this respect. But the intention with CSRD, if we keep that in mind, is to provide more information, more high quality information, more comparable information, etc., to the market, to investors, to providers of capital, etc. And then reflecting back on the previous slide, what you report, that will actually give an indication on how well you will actually manage these future impacts. So it's not to neglect, but it's more a reporting of how you actually manage things going forward and will cope with the challenges. With that said, while highly simplified, this is one way of clustering the different regulations coming along. So we have circularity, we have climate or decarbonization, we have supply chain, and we have greenwashing. And I thought we could go through them very, very briefly. But if we start with circularity, basically all the legislative initiatives under the EU action plans on circular economy or circular economy action plan have now been either entered into force or are under consideration by the European Council or the Parliament. They are expected to be applicable within the coming 3 years, and they range from legislative initiatives such as the eco-design to right to repair, packaging, waste shipments, etc. But what it will mean for companies is that we really need to understand what are our design challenges when it comes to circularity. Sort of assess what potentials do we have to use circularity in our business, and then how will that impact our business model, and how do we need to adapt our business model going forward. The third item is then to secure that we have the right strategy in place in order to get where we want to go, that we have governance in order to monitor that we're getting there and drive the performance in that direction. But then first on the slide, but last but not least, data. We need to really understand our baseline, where are we today, and have the right data to be able to track our progress going forward. Moving on to decarbonization or climate, there have been a series of legislative initiatives with a fairly broad target area within this space. These ranges from CBAM, the carbon tax on certain imports, to net zero industry, to certification of carbon removals, to legislative initiatives around the different fuels, around renewables, around fuel infrastructure, etc. Here for companies, the key will be, this is an area where many companies have been working for quite some time, but here the thing to focus on now is to actually drive actual real emission reductions throughout the value chain. In order to do that, you will need more data, you will need better data, and you will need more primary data that is actionable and that you can actually see the effects of your actions. It's about having a clear view of the carbon footprint of the materials that we use, the fuels that we use, the buildings that we have, etc. And focus should be then on electrification, on renewables and green infrastructure. Also within supply chain, we see a wide range of initiatives ranging from batteries, critical raw materials to deforestation. And last but not least, the CSDDD, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, which will really put responsibility within the supply chain at a tipping point and put it to the test. This will likely be associated with quite significant compliance efforts and potential compliance costs. For the companies, it's about taking stock of the supply chain. Do we really have the insights we need, the transparency we need in order to understand what's happening in our supply chain so we can act accordingly? It will likely materialize matters around sourcing strategy. Can we keep going as we have, or do we need to adapt? Should we stay global or go more regional? Not sure what the answer will be, but those questions will likely materialize. And there will be significant efforts needed to just ensure compliance on this item. Lastly, greenwashing. This is about both empowering consumers to make the right choices, so to say, to stimulate the transition, but also to set the rules for what companies can claim and not when it comes to sustainability and sustainable products, etc. So here it's about ensuring that you have accurate data, yet again. It's about review and test your messaging, sort of what can we say, what can't we say, and then also embedding this greenwashing risks into the ordinary governance processes. So it's easy to get bogged down with all of this talk about compliance. I can hear it myself, but and although a lot of focus today is placed on CSRD, I guess the main message here is that this is part of a broader agenda, both a broader legislative agenda, but the legislative agenda as such is also part of a broader agenda to actually push towards the just transition that we're heading for. So that's important to keep in mind in this perspective. Going to some key takeaways then from this session. So I guess what I want to convey here is that when taking on sustainability now, be it around CSRD or be it around something else, take a broader stance. Try to look a bit further about what are we actually going to be hit by as a company? What do we need to consider as a company in the slightly longer term to identify what will be the critical value levers, risk drivers in our business in the longer term, so you can start working on those and taking that more strategic approach to the area as such. Next, evaluate the governance structure and set it up in a way that you get your people with you, that you get the management with you, and the board on board, I guess, on that journey. So you can drive your performance in an effective way, you can adapt as you move along and develop, so you end up in the upper side of the graph earlier. And lastly, a common denominator is having the right data. So basically focus on getting the data in place in a structured way so it can be used for multi-purposes. And this is irrespective if we talk about sustainability reporting, compliance to other regulations, or actually driving your performance going forward. Whenever possible, it should cater for multi-purposes. And it's important to keep in mind that there will be opportunities to be seized along the way for the ones that are leading the way. That was what I'm going to say. So thank you all for listening.